I have 204 tons of oxalite and bleach stone. Hello folks, today we are here with oxygen not included, a quick tutorial on how to ranch puffs automatically at industrial scale with highest efficiency more or less. So this is one of the contraptions I built in one of my playthroughs. It looks pretty complicated, I know, don't be scared. I'm going to explain most of it, it's pretty simple. So let's take a look at quickly a sandbox mode and how we can build this. So we'll start with this basic contraption. It's a simple ranch size of, let's say, what is the size of this? 6 by 6 more or less. We kind of want to limit the motion of puffs because they take a lot of FPS as well as, they take a lot of time to come back for grooming. This is like a smallish area for us to ranch all of our puffs. There's a crater drop off, there's an auto sweeper, there's a conveyor loader, all the basic necessities. Now, the biggest problem that comes in puff ranching is not from normal puffs, but the requirement that all of these puffs, like the dense puffed, squeaky puffed, their reproduction requirement is if and only if they are penned with a puff prince, they will produce these eggs. Otherwise, all of them will basically revert back to, normal puff prince eggs. So you need to have at least one puff prince in the ranch and rest everything else. What are you doing here? I don't know how you came here, but you're supposed to be in your own ranch, not somewhere here. Might be a loading error. But anyways, so here what we are doing is we created a smallish room and we have an auto sweeper placed in a very strategic location. I'll cover all of this, but you can see this auto sweeper can reach all the tiles within this ranch. One tile here, it can reach one tile here, but it cannot reach a tile here. This kind of makes fairly good use of the auto sweeper, and we don't have to invest in a lot of expensive material. You can just build it out of lead and you'll be fine as long as you keep the temperature below 55 degrees. You can easily do that with a cooling mechanism. So here what we are doing is we have a crater drop off. We can select a specific puff type. So I want to have, let's say, dense puffed. So I'm going to put dense puffed and dense pufflet. You can avoid having a pufflet, and I don't need more than, let's say, 3 critters here. Now the thing here is we need to get one puff prince and only one single puff prince in this ranch. Reason being, puff princes are highly inefficient resource producers. You can see here a puff prince converts 10% of resources they eat, as compared to a regular puffed or dense puffed, they convert 95% of resources they eat. So that's why nobody likes to pen only puff princes. That is where all the automation comes in place. So what we are going to do is we are going to have this conveyor loader taking away all of the eggs. But I'm not going to choose squeaky puffed eggs on this side. I'll tell you later on. But right now this side is only dedicated to dense puffs. We also have a thin layer of petroleum here so that whatever droppings they drop, including the bleach stone as well as oxalite, doesn't evaporate automatically. We can put that in this conveyor loader and that can basically carry everything except eggs. Okay. So now let's take a look at the mechanism, how we can actually put one and only one puff prince eggs here. For that, we need to take a look at puff prince life cycle. So a puff prince here, you can see, has an age of 75 cycles and it has a childhood period of 5 cycles. So we need to have at least one puff prince that is adult in this ranch. To do that, what we have here is conveyor loader filter. So we'll just build this conveyor loader filter above. You can just use any material. I use steel because I had too much steel. So shipping wise, what we can do is we can have our conveyor rails that is going from the egg collection to the input of this conveyor filter. The job of this filter is to only select prince egg. Okay, so all the puff prince eggs are going to be taken into a different line, and everything else is going to just go here. Here I'm going to pass it through a conveyor filter, more or less. So this is a conveyor sensor, and that is connected to a conveyor chute. So in this case, our puff prince egg is coming on this channel, and everything else is going this way, right? But then we need to figure out a way to actually move one puff prince egg per ranch in per 75 cycles. So that is where this meter control comes in place. What it will do is each time it will receive a reset signal, that is this port, it will allow one and only one item to pass through, right? And that item can be passed through the output. So this is the output. So I'll say connect that output to here. So it will take the puff prince egg, come here, and every 75 cycle we will have to reset this through automation. And once we have resetted it, the puff prince egg is going to land here. Now you can see duplicates don't have access to this area because it's way too tall, and the auto sweeper as well cannot take anything out of this tile. The old puff prince would have died by the time this puff prince would have become the adult. So that's how we maintain a population of puff prince in this ranch. I forgot to mention, we need to put our blob of liquid in this tile. Reason being, we don't want puffs to lay an egg in this tile because it is inaccessible to our auto sweeper. So whenever we put a puff prince egg here through conveyor rails, it will grow up and automatically fly out of the liquid. But other puffs will not come back inside the liquid to lay another egg or oxalate. Now the next obvious thing we are going to take a look at how you're going to reset this filter in every 75 cycles. So for that we have a little bit of automation. So first we need to have a cycle sensor that is going to send one click per cycle. So I'm just going to say it is going to be active, let's say 1% of the time or whatever, 0.7% of the time per cycle. So every cycle it is going to send a click, and we just need to count how many clicks have occurred since the last time we saw this. So what we can do for that is we'll take an automation, we'll take signal counter here, and we'll make this signal counter count up to 75 so that we can use this. So let's say I will count it here. Okay, having an automation wire that goes from here all the way to here. You can rearrange these things. I just like to keep these things in this format just to be consistent with the build I showed you before, but you can keep it in any format more or less. It will send a tick every 10 cycles to this counter, and this is going to count up to 7. So now we have counted up to 70 cycles. Now we also need to count next 5 cycles, so we'll need one more of these counters. Put it somewhere hidden because I don't like to keep it visible, and put it 5. And we'll increment this with the same timer, right? So this will count up to 5 and this will count up to 70. So once you have 70, you can do an AND gate and say this is 75. Okay, and we can just use this as a reset signal to these two to reset the counters and to reset the conveyor meter. So this way every 75 cycle this conveyor meter is going to allow one and only one item to pass through it, and that item is going to land here. Now we will need multiple conveyor meters for each of these sub ranches that we'll need to have, like one ranch for oxygen puffs, one ranch for squeaky puffs. So probably two of these we'll need. So I'm just going to put the second one over here and connect it with the same automation. So I think it's just connected. Yes, it is part of this same automation. I might have connected something wrong. So yeah, that's true. Let me fix that. Done. We just moved all of these counters one tile above so that this port is not overlapped with this reset wire, and we just moved the reset wire through a bridge to come down here. Now let's take a look at what this is. So technically we don't need to ranch a lot of puffs to generate the output. We can keep the other puffs fed and more or less glum. As long as they are fed, they don't mind not being, groomed. You can see here, mood glum, their metabolism is minus 80%. Sure, they will consume less food and they will generate less amount of materials, but this is totally manual labor free. So in this case, I am just running a ranch with 3 puffs in each of the sides, and rest of the materials, that is the bleach stone and oxygen or oxalite, is coming from these major production centers, more or less. Now you can see there's a diagonal relation between these two. This one is a ranch that is used for oxalite, and I have squeaky puffs penned over here. So you can see there are 2 gas vents, one gas vent that is feeding oxygen here, and another gas vent that is a high pressure gas vent that is feeding chlorine on this side. So this way you can feed these puffs and they can just stay in these 2 tiles and keep generating bleach stone. As you can see, this auto sweeper can access this part, so it can take away all the meat and eggshells that are going to be generated here. But as we did not choose the squeaky puff eggs, that means that all the squeaky puff eggs are going to stay here safely stored, and only the dense puff eggs are swept. This is just a clever mechanism of avoiding multiple auto sweepers, just to reduce the cost of making this thing. I also put airflow tile here so that all the vent can basically put oxygen or chlorine directly on the other side without giving a lot of moving room to these puffs, because they will lag your game out more or less. So this is literally a mirror image of the previous build that we had here. We have naphtha in important places like this. You can see is a 2 kgs of naphtha, so that whatever product we generate, bleach or oxalite, does not off gas. That's the same thing here. Let's take a look at the routing. We have 2 conveyor loaders combined here and go this way. This will detect if that thing, whatever we are carrying, is, let's say, a dense puffed egg. If that is true, then we have connected an automation wire from here to here, and the dense puffed eggs are going to get dropped in this tile. They will over the time mature and become dense puffs, and they will start churning out oxalite. Everything else that is not dense puffed eggs are going to get forwarded here. Out of that, all the puff prince eggs are going to get transferred above, and we have seen this logic where it is going to take one puff prince egg every 75 cycle and put it here, another puff prince egg every 75 cycle and put it here, and rest of them basically go outside our ranch to an evolution chamber or wherever you want to put them. Okay, and whatever is left after taking out dense puffs as well as puff prints are going to get forwarded to this side, and this will check if they are squeaky puff eggs. The reason why it is so efficient is as long as these are fed, you can see some of them are fully fed and their mood is just gloom. The metabolism is minus 80%, but the reproduction is still 100%. So that means as long as we keep feeding them, they will keep dropping eggs, and the population on this tile is going to keep going up and up and up. So we don't need to actually ranch a lot of dense puffs or squeaky puffs, just one or two will do. Some of them are starving and they will die. So whatever chlorine is coming here is not enough to feed all of them. But still, that's fine. The population automatically balances over time. Now this ranch is 96 tiles overall. So this will be able to support up to 6 creatures, I believe, for puffs. And we are only storing 3. So the only thing that we need to take care of is these critters that are penned up in this tile don't have any puff princes, and they kinda have access to outside area. So you can see this channel. This is like a 1 tile gap which is filled with liquid, so they cannot go out. So if I take a room overlay, you can see this is still a single room that is connected somehow to our puff print storage. So all the excess puff prints we basically store somewhere, just so that these things will lay down the eggs of their own kind and not convert into puff prints. And it is ultimately connected to space, so that all this room size is 74,000, so they will never ever get crowded at all. Let's take a look at the gas piping itself. So ventilation, I'll go here. So let's say you have 2 lines coming in, one line of oxygen and another line of chlorine, I guess, right? So this oxygen line can directly come here and feed this vent. So we want to have most of our oxygen, or at least the major breeding ranch, fully fed, and whatever is left over after feeding the breeding ranch has to go in the dense puffed production area. So I'll just do this. So this way, whatever excess oxygen we have is going to go to dense puffs. Similarly, we can do this thing where we will take chlorine and prioritize it to go to the chlorine or squeaky puff ranch, right? And whatever cannot go to squeaky puff ranch overflow will basically come here in a production area. Finally, you will ask, how do you actually get started with the puff mutations? Because to get started, you first need access to puffs, and then you need to convert them to puff princes. And once you have puffed and a puff prince together, then and then only they'll start churning out these different kinds of puffs, right? To do that, I basically like to use outhouses. They are pretty cheap and they generate unlimited amount of polluted oxygen, more or less. So what I did here is have a tiny area somewhere carved out. We kind of don't really care at this point about slime, so I'm not bothered to actually build slime factory, but you can use the same logic to put in another cell that will generate slime overall. The reason why we want to have this kind of a puff ranch is we need to have a stable population of puff princes. These ranches will not generate puff prince eggs at all. Because there is a puff prince here, you can see reproduction chances of puff egg is 100% and prince egg is 0%. Same is true with all of them, because they have ultimate access to puff princess. They will not generate a puff prince egg. So we will need a ranch that does not have access to puff princes to actually generate the prince eggs. So the job of this one singular lonely puff is to constantly stay here, eat the polluted oxygen generated by these mods, and all the slime that it generates basically gets converted back into polluted oxygen, and just drop the puff prince eggs. So if I click on the puff, you can see puff prince eggs is 99%. So this puff is always going to churn more puff prince eggs than we are ever going to need. And that's pretty much it. That's how you build this kind of a puffed contraption. We also have like a smallish incubation area which is incubating one type of puff in each of these cells. You only need one unpowered incubator for each puff type to maintain their population. They will generate enough puffs or squeaky puff or dense puffs to keep these ranches fully filled. And we are generating ridiculous amount of resources. You can see here, I have 204 and 4 tons of oxalite, and bleach stone is 21 tons. I'm kind of using a bleach stone for, I guess, hot tubs a lot somewhere over in my base. You can see here, as well as some geotuners. But ultimately, we have enough production to support our rocket program. So let me know if you folks found this episode useful. I'll try to make a couple of different tutorials about some of the more interesting topics. Hope to see you folks next time.